Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for getting started with Canvas for Teachers. We're super excited today to talk to you about the new quizzes. This is Pam Batchelor with Digital Teaching and Learning at NCDPI. And with me today, I have several of my colleagues. I'll let them introduce themselves.
I'm Julie Gerganis. I'm the Northeast Regional Consultant with Digital Teaching and Learning, and I'm excited to be a part of this today.
Hi, I'm Jill Darrow. I am the Southeast Consultant with Digital Teaching and Learning, and I also manage professional learning for the Digital Learning Initiative and coordinate connecting communities of education stakeholders. Really excited to be here with you all today. And excuse the chat that has Stacy Lovedall's email address. That was something I accidentally copied and didn't realize.
But Stacy is the West Educator on Loan, correct? So those people in the West would benefit from having that information, even though she's not joining us today. And I'm Christy Barham, and I am the Customer Success Manager for North Carolina for Canvas, and so excited for you to be here. I'm going to back up the slides just a bit to get you back to the bit.ly for today's slide deck. Also, we can drop that in chat. And sorry. And Pam, is it attached also as PDF? I haven't looked yet.
Yes, we do have the presentation slide deck attached in the handout section of GoToWebinar, or you can use the bit.ly that Jill has pasted into chat to get today's presentation. You're definitely going to want that because Christy always has tons of links in her presentations. So either opening up the PDF copy or jumping on the link in a new browser tab.
Yeah, and if one of you, I added it to I just sent it to organizers, but I can't send it to attendees. So if y'all want to grab that and send it to attendees, that'd be great. Thank you. And all right, so Pam, you want to talk about the CEUs for the attendance to these webinars?
Sure, you always give me the most interesting parts of the webinar to talk about.
Well, you can do the whole new quizzes if you want to.
No, I think everyone would rather hear it from the expert themselves. But anyway, so CEU questions and clarifications. So for your live attendance tonight or today, you get 0.1 CEU, and you will get a certificate within 5 business days after this webinar is over with your email certificate, as well as a link to the recording of this webinar so you can refer back to it and play it again slowly, because I know we're getting in the holiday season and we've got a lot of things going on, so it may be a little bit before you get a chance to design a new quiz, and so you'll have this recording to be able to play back. We do recommend on your certificate that you get digital learning competency credit. However, approval of that credit is up to your local public school unit. So please make sure you follow your local process and include any type of justification or artifacts, such as maybe a screenshot of a quiz you're going to design after hearing how fabulous the new quizzes feature is. It really is life-changing for online courses, I believe. And then you do have to be logged into the webinar using the link that was given to you when you registered, and that registration email address is the one that I will use for making sure you get your certificate. So if you know that you registered with your personal email address, be looking for the email from me, Pamela Batchelor, to go to your personal email address, because I use whichever email address you registered with. Also, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please use the questions feature. I will be monitoring that and answering questions, as well as bringing questions up for Christy periodically throughout the webinar. I think that's, we do have one quick question. I wanted to go ahead and launch a poll just for our knowledge to know. So the first thing we want to know is, what is your role? So we're going to launch that real quick and let you tell us a little bit about yourself, just so that way we have an idea of who's joining us virtually. About 5 more seconds. All right, and so we do have mostly classroom teachers with us today, as well as a couple of instructional coaches and district administrators. All right, we have one more question, and that is, does your public school unit have a paid version of Canvas, which is usually that red icon in your NC Ed Cloud tray?
Unless you're Wake County, and Wake County, you do have a paid, so you can answer yes, even if it's not a red icon.
All right. And it does look like mostly we do have folks that have the paid version today.
Great, great.
Uh-huh.
All right, fantastic. Just want to remind you that we do have these webinars monthly. We always try to do a 4 o'clock and a 7 o'clock to accommodate different schedules and availability. The next scheduled webinar is on January 15th, and that will be getting started with Canvas for Teachers Gradebook and Power Teacher Pro Grade Passback. So I know that's a hot topic, so please be sure to join us for that one. The full schedule is available here and with a description for each month. And also, Pam does a great job of, after the recording is posted or available, going in and updating this resource with the recording so you can always watch it later, as well as the follow-up email contains the link to the recording as well. So hope to see you next month. But without further ado, we'll get started with new quizzes today. So hopefully this is kind of a long agenda, so I'm not sure we'll hit every item, but we'll definitely try. I'll try to touch on each thing at least a little bit, but we'll do just a brief introduction to new quizzes, talk about migrating a classic quiz to a new quiz. Also, we'll discuss outcome alignment with quiz questions and new quizzes. We'll look at the different question types and the settings, as well as report options. We'll talk about moderating a quiz and also adding student accommodations. We'll talk about item banks and how you can share those easily with other teachers, and then hopefully have some practice creating a new quiz. Now, I know whenever you're watching a webinar, it's difficult because you may not have two screens to toggle back and forth between what I'm showing and to practice it yourself. And I know the best way to learn is to actually practice. So I hope that you are able to access the recording later and pause and rewind and go back if you need some help. But also, I've tried to put in a lot of resources for you. So we're going to kind of take a look at a couple of these things in detail, but just know that with the new quizzes guides, basically anything and everything that you ever wanted to know how to do with new quizzes, you can find here. So I have linked that into the presentation, but also you can find it from your instance. Sorry. So whenever you go to search the Canvas guides, you're going to go to Canvas guides, instructor guide, and then you always have all of the help guides. This section that I linked was definitely for new quizzes, but you saw that everything you ever want to know how to do in Canvas, you can find. Again, those are accessible by going to your help menu and then search the Canvas guides. All right, I want to take you into the new users group, new quizzes user group. Just to show you, so we have had obviously quizzing available ever since Canvas became available back in 2010, 2011. Not everybody has been a Canvas user that long, but since the product was developed, there's always been a quizzing engine. However, around 2014 or 15, they began work on a new quizzing engine. So really completely redesigning that quizzing experience. And here we are almost at 2020, and we still have both. We have the classic quizzes, which is what you might be most familiar with. And then the last couple of years, depending on what your district Canvas administrator or school Canvas administrator decided to do, you may have started seeing new quizzes also. So it's possible to have both. And you would not just have new quizzes. So you either have only old quizzes or you have both. And hopefully it's both, because I think everyone has turned those on across the state. But if not, then you can certainly follow up with me or with your Canvas administrator to find out if you can get access to new quizzes. But basically, on this new quizzes users group, there's a lot of information. There's a timeline here that talks about what's been going on, at least in the last couple of years. We really spent a lot of time last year asking for feedback and getting some direction from our users, from teachers and from administrators, saying, you know, what are your priorities? And we use that to help drive our prioritization of things that are still in progress and coming. So based on this prioritization exercise, this is where this roadmap was. It closed in July. We had over 1,000 responses, and so these were the things that we determined were the most important and the highest priority, things that we needed to do, work on, and develop still in our new quizzes. And so you can see that some of the things have already been completed. We're still working on some of the others. But as you can see, there are still, again, there's still just a lot of work to be done. Although it is a great quizzing engine already, they are not done with it, and so there will still be improvements to come. So just wanted to point that out to you. Also, here you can find a frequently asked questions document. So these are some of the things that, again, might get asked most frequently about new quizzes. Again, there's a link to the guides. There's a link to known issues.
Christy,
Yes.
we're getting a couple of things that we might have some audio issues. If I could get the attendees to raise your hand in the attendee panel if you're able to hear us okay. We'll do a quick little check just to make sure. You can raise your hand using the attendee panel if you can hear us. Okay. And then I'm going to reset. And Christy, I want you to start talking, and then everyone can raise their hand again if you can hear Christy.
Okay. Are you able to hear me speaking? Please raise your hand if you're able to hear me speaking.
Okay. It looks like we have hands again. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are on this, this known issues page. If there's anything that is going on, because again, this is a product in development, then they're listed here. And usually the solution as well. So like here, sometimes people say they can't see their outcomes in new quizzes when they're trying to add an outcome to a question. Which we're going to talk about today. And it says the troubleshooting is sometimes it can take up to 48 hours for newly created outcomes to be available. So, you know, there are troubleshooting tips here also for known issues. This is a document that I really wanted us to look at. This is a feature comparison between what we call our classic quizzes and the new quizzes. So you can see the things, like there are some things that classic quizzes can do that new quizzes cannot yet do and or doesn't do, maybe for good reason, maybe because there's another feature in new quizzes that's even better. So but there's a comparison document. Looks like there's more in classic quizzes up here, but then when you get down into like the question types, you'll see there are many more question types available in new quizzes. Also, there's some setting differences, like you can shuffle answers per question, shuffle questions globally. That's always been a big ask. So you can see that there are different things that, again, new quizzes can do that classic quizzes can't. But this is a really helpful resource as you're starting to think about, do you want to jump to begin using new quizzes? Looking at the differences between the two different quizzing engines would be helpful. So we're going to look at an example of a new quiz. You may not have access to this. I did put a link on that picture, but this is a private course, but I wanted to have it readily available to show you. So this is looking from the teacher view, so I wanted to show you everything from the teacher view. I can also show it to you from a student view after. But you can see what it looks like, a little different from what you're normally used to seeing when you're looking at the classic quizzes. Notice that there are all kinds of different question types. So this is a hotspot one where they're asking, and this is a Canvas quiz, right? So saying highlight the module. So coming over here and highlighting that would be the hotspot. That would be the correct answer. Obviously, there's multiple choice. This is categorization. So students are placing the organs of the human body in the correct system. Multiple choice again. It's another multiple choice. Another hotspot, select the portion of the diagram where the carbon dioxide is included in the process of photosynthesis. Here's another hotspot, select the error, just showing you different ways that these questions can be used. Select the portion of the graph. It's another hotspot, another categorization, taxonomic classification. Here's a formula question. Ordering, so students would drag and drop those. Here's a stimulus. So this is really nice. Previously in a classic quiz, if you were trying to create a group of questions that followed a reading passage, you basically just had to use the text, no question item type, and then add a series of questions. But in the new quizzes, you can add a stimulus. It could be a reading selection, it could be a graph, it could be a number of different things, but then you can add multiple questions that are aligned to that, and the students see them side by side like they're used to seeing on most of their end of course tests or end of grade tests. Of course, you have essay, fill in the blank. Here is a prompt where they would see us watch a video. In this particular, this is a question group where it says just pull 5 random questions from bank 1. So if you had question banks set up, especially if you had question banks aligned to different standards, you could build a cumulative assessment or a spiral review where you're saying pull 5 questions from this bank and 5 questions from this bank. And then students would have unique quizzes, and or if students were allowed multiple attempts, they would get a unique quiz each time because you're just pulling random questions from a bank. So you have that capability. You have those true false. Again, here's another, these are just, I think somebody was playing around showing banks again. So just showing that you could pull questions, again, randomly from banks. So all of those different question types are available with those new quizzes or with a new quiz. So super exciting, especially the hotspot and the stimulus. Those are 2 of my favorites. There are some additional settings. So you can shuffle questions. You can allow 1 question at a time, and allow or disallow backtracking. You can require a student access code. Set a time limit. You could filter IP addresses. I don't recommend that unless you know those IP addresses. Allow a calculator, and you can allow calculator on individual questions as well. So let me go down to like a formula question where it would make sense. So I could excuse me. I don't want to, this is somebody else's quiz, so I don't want to do it on there. So I'll show you how to add a question, I'll show you how to add a calculator to individual question when we get to building. But you can add calculators to individual questions as well as to the assessment as a whole. So if you have calculator active and inactive questions on the same assessment, you do not have to allow the calculator for the whole assessment. But if it's all, students have the capability of using a calculator on the whole assessment, then you can turn that on from the quiz settings. Again, you can allow multiple attempts, how many attempts. You can say, they've got to have a waiting period. So if you wanted to make sure students had time to study and they just weren't multiple guessing, you could do that. And then you can see, you can restrict how students see results. So if you just wanted them to see the points awarded or points possible, if you wanted them to be able to see their response, the incorrect answer, the correct answer, you would make those decisions. So all of those options as an instructor. You also have 2 wonderful reports that are available. You have quiz and item analysis. So you can see with the quiz, like just overall, you can see the high score, low score, mean standard deviation, mean elapsed time. You can see kind of the spread of those scores there. With item analysis, you are able to see for individual questions. Let's look here. You can see the answer frequency, the number of respondents that answered those. And you can see here there was a standards, or excuse me, there was an outcome aligned to that question. So you're able to see that as well. For each of those questions, you can break that down and see that information. So that tells you whether or not maybe perhaps it was just a bad question, right? Or the students didn't understand a term in the question. So it may not be that the understanding of the skill needs to be revisited or retaught. It's just it may be that the question itself was problematic. So looking at that item analysis is really helpful that way. We also have outcomes analysis where you have where the builder of this quiz aligned outcomes to individual questions. And so as the students have been taking the assessment, you get a report that shows where they, what their mastery level was that they demonstrated on this particular assessment towards that outcome. So you're able to see students who have met mastery, and then of course those that did not meet. You also have the ability to moderate. So there are, like with this particular student, I can moderate it. I could say, I want to give this student additional attempts. I could say I want to give additional time. And if I wanted to give additional time, how much additional time? I also, that would be per assessment. If I wanted to give an accommodation for every new quizzes assessment that the student took in my Canvas course, then I could set that up here. So if I have a student with an IEP or 504 that needs additional time, or needs to have that time limit removed, or needs to have like, double time or triple time, then I can add those accommodations for the whole course right here. So that's a great opportunity to manage those accommodations that students might have. I want to show you from a student perspective what that quiz looks like. So I'm going to go in and masquerade as a student. Actually, let me just do my student view to make sure you all know that you have that. So I'm going to go into, when I go to my course settings, just in case you've never used it before, you all have a student view. So I'm going to go to student view, and I'm going to go to quizzes next. Creating an assessment with quizzes next. And this is going to show me what this quiz looks like from the student perspective. So from a student perspective, I get that welcome message from the professor, and I'm able to begin. Tells me my time remaining. I can drag and drop these items. I can sort. This is that categorization. Answer my question. I hope that no one's judging me because I'm not paying any attention. I can choose my hotspot. If you remember, this is a different question than the last one. Right in there. That's not the radius. I remember that answer. I'm gonna cheat. for the one I just remembered that I saw earlier. So I'm not going to put all of these. I'm not going to score very well on this quiz. So I'm trying to randomly or quickly get through it so you can see. I can jump to specific questions over here. If I wanted to jump back, I can jump back. Also, if I wanted to pin one so that I revisit it later, I could do that. And as I move ahead, then I could go back to, oops, here I can see either one question at a time. Excuse me. It's not showing me what I expected to see there, so that's my misunderstanding. But here I'm going to continue with that hotspot. And just a couple more questions, I think we'll get through here. Actually, let me go to number 25 next. We're going to just go ahead and submit that. And it tells me multiple questions haven't been answered, right? And so the instructor has said results are not displayed yet, but I have now finished that quiz. And then to get back to the course, I go to return. And that's important because both when you're building the course and also whenever you are a student in the course, in order to exit it, you have to then hit that return button. So that's what it looks like from a student perspective and also from a teacher perspective. So we're going to go in now and we're going to build one. So I'm going to go to my sandbox. I always suggest that if you have a sandbox to play in, then you do that. Although anything in Canvas that is not published is not visible by students. So you're always able to play around and try things without publishing it, and your students won't see it. Like I said, this is just on my dashboard. I'm creating a new course just to play around in. All right. I always build for modules. So I'm going to start there. Now, the way this is a little bit confusing, I'm just going to be completely honest. When you go to add an item to a module, you can drop down and add an assignment, a quiz, any of these different types of things. If you go to quiz, you're going to be adding a classic quiz. In order to add a new quiz, you have to go to assignments. So I'm going to add assignment, new assignment, and I'm going to say new quiz example. So that just adds that right there. I'm going to open that up. I'm going to edit it. Now, this is something that's really nice because previously, you know, with classic quizzes, the total number of points of a classic quiz was only, it was calculated by the cumulative number of points from each quiz question. So if I had 10 quiz questions, they were worth 10 points each, then my quiz would be worth 100. But if I had 9 quiz questions and I said they were worth 10 points each, then my quiz would only be worth 90. If I had 3 quiz questions and they were worth 10 points each, then my quiz would be worth 30. But that was, you couldn't say, I want it to be out of 100, but then only have 3 questions and have that be calculated for you. You kind of had to do that math yourself. But with the new quizzes, you could say what you want the total point value to be here, and it will do the calculation for you. So I'm going to go ahead and say my point value. I'm going to say that this is very important. This is how you create a new quiz. You're going to go to External Tool. Then you're going to go to find, and this is going to be, mine should say quizzes 2. Okay. Yours could say new quizzes, but most likely it says quizzes 2 also. Depends on when it was added to your instance. But quizzes 2, I'm going to assign it to everyone, and I'm going to decide on my due date. Now I'm going to save that. When I save it, it's going to launch that builder for me. All right, so I'm going to pause there. I'm going to go back and do that again. Are there any questions while I get ready to go back and do that again?
Not yet, Christy.
Okay. So we're going to go to home again, then my module. I'm going to go add an item. Remember, I've got to add assignment for it to be a new quiz. I'm going to do new quiz example 2. Open that up. Going to go to edit. I want this to be a 10-point quiz. I'm gonna do submission type, external tool. Again, this is that important part that I need to show you. I just want to demonstrate again. You go to find. This is a quizzes 2 LTI. Select, choose my due date, and save. And that launches that builder. Ooh. It didn't launch it. Let's see what happened. 10, 5. Okay, sorry about that. I just seemed to have a hiccup. All right, so as this is again where I'm going to start building it. As I'm building, you're going to see on the side the points will start accumulating. She'll be able to see the number of points here that I've added into my quiz. I can go ahead and work on my settings if I want to. So I now want to shuffle my questions. I know I want students to see one question at a time. I'm going to have a student access code and have that be like Monday, December, what's Monday? Let's say it's the 9th, but I'm not sure. I could enforce a time limit. If I wanted to enforce a time limit, I could have it be 15 minutes. So this is going to be my bell ringer. Might even be shorter than that. Students need a calculator. I'm going to choose what type of calculator. I'm going to allow students multiple attempts. Limited, let's say I'm a limited at 3, and they can keep their the highest attempts. I'm going to require some time between them, 10 minutes. And I'm not going to restrict student result. Well, actually, I am going to restrict student result view. I'm going to show points awarded, show possible points. I'm going to show items and questions. I'm going to show that student response. I'm going to indicate response is correct or incorrect. I'm not going to show the correct answer. I'm not going to show item feedback, or I am going to show item feedback, excuse me, because once my students take the quiz, I want them to learn what did they get wrong and what's that feedback, because if I would help, gave them a help or a clue or an additional resource to look at if they got it wrong, then I want them to be able to do that before they go back in and attempt it again. But I do not want them to see the correct answer, so I am restricting that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to build. As I'm building, I also want to align outcomes to this particular quiz. I'm going to revisit that with you later, because I have to add in outcomes to my course first, and I don't have outcomes in this course first. I have to add outcomes to my course and then add outcomes to the quiz, and then I can add them to questions. So I'll show you that in another course where I have them in just a second. But then I am going to add some instructions for my students. So I can say, So I'm telling them they can use their notes. Those are just instructions. And then I start building. So I click on a plus sign, and it gives me the different types of items that I can choose from. So I'm going to go in and let's do categorization. The question title. You have to put a question title. It doesn't show visible. I might say, if I had a standard or objective, that might be what I put there. The question stem is sort the pizza toppings by food group. So I might have a vegetable, meat, might have dairy, right? And so answers might be mushrooms, onions, green peppers. We could keep going, right? But I won't do it for sake of time. But you see how you start building these. This is the categorization. So this is going to be where the students are able to drag things and drop it into the correct category. I could put distractors in there if I wanted to. If I needed a calculator here, I could have it turn on or not. If I had outcomes already aligned to this quiz, I could do there. And if I wanted to add this item to a bank, I could do that. So let's say that I was creating questions that were aligned to a specific outcome or standard. I could go ahead and add that to that bank. So let's say if I needed to add to a new bank, I could do that. And so now that question would be available in that bank as well for me to pull from in the future. Also, I can share banks with other instructors. So this is how, once the students, all of the uncategorized would be done here for the students in the student view, and they would drag them up in the correct categories. So then when I'm ready to add another question, then I just add the next question. And so if I wanted to add a hotspot item, then I could, let's say that that was in this particular standard. I could say find the all right, so so if I had one, I'm going to pretend that I have one of these that doesn't have, and this is copyrighted. All right, well, I don't have one that has an image, so let's do, all right, so I'm going to put that dog here. All right, tells me to draw the hotspot shape. So I'm going to draw that hotspot shape around my dog's head because the basa is a head. All right, and I can, so clicks within the hotspot receive full points. Oops, I might need to make that a little bigger. I have to learn to draw a little better. I'm going to do a square. I think it'll be easier. There we go. That'll be a lot easier. All right. So clicks within the hotspot receive 4 points. Again, if I needed a calculator with that down here, I could add it. If I needed to align it to an outcome, I could. Or if I wanted to item bank it, remember, I can do that. So now I'm going to add a new item bank. And we'll say for this particular outcome. So that's added to that item bank. And you can just continue adding questions, ordering. Say that that was part of this particular standard. So perhaps this is the order that you get ready in the morning. I don't know. So we would be able to create that. And now the students they're going to be able to, they will see them in a shuffled order, and they would be able to put those things in order. It's not a great question because people do different things at different steps, but just showing you an example there. So again, you can continue adding your questions, including your stimulus. So you might have a stimulus that is I hope in actuality, I'd make sure I'm not violating any kind of copyright or anything, but I just want to show you an example. So I got my source URL here. It says it's not visible to students, but there you go, I got that there. I want to item bank this, so I'm going to add that to a new bank. All right. And I can attach questions to it. So I can attach a, let's just say it was a true false question. And this was 1.03, questions 10. So I had a true or false question. I'm not typing that, but I'm not typing the question, but let's just pretend it was. So even though that true or false question was there, I would say the correct answer, and I could put that in the item bank. Oops, let's just put it in there. And I could continue attaching questions to this stimulus just over and over again. Okay. As you see over here, it tells me I have a total of 4 points. Let's just pretend that I wanted this question to be worth more than 4 points, or more than 1 point. Then I could change that there. Now I've got a total of 5 points. You see that I've got that stimulus there with the questions. So I'm going to return. I'm going to go home. I'm going to publish my quiz, or excuse me, my course. I'm going to publish the module, and I want to publish that quiz because I want to show you the student view of that quiz now that we've been building it. Oh no. I might have to forget. There we go. Monday, December 9th. So I had to put in my correct access code. I can begin. So this is the student view. So I'm putting in again mushrooms, onions, sausage, cheese, green peppers, pepperoni. Going next. So I said brush teeth, take a shower, put on clothes, dry hair, eat breakfast. So that was true. And notice that because I said students could see their quiz results, it does give me my score. It also, because I said that they could see their actual choices and their answers that were right or wrong, it shows me those. And I decided I was going to get a perfect score on this one, so I see that I got 100 on it. But this is what it looks like from that student view. We go to another course, I can show you what the outcomes alignment looks like, and also how to migrate a quiz. Actually, let's go to migrate a quiz first. So if I'm in this course, this is an introduction to geology, and I'm on my quizzes tab, I'm only going to see the classic quizzes because new quizzes are going to be under assignments. Classic quizzes are the only thing that you're going to see here under the quizzes tab. But in order for me to migrate a classic quiz to a new quiz, I just have to go to the quizzes page, click on these three dots, and hit migrate. Might take just a minute. Then when I go to my assignments page, you're going to see migrated quizzes, and I had already migrated that one in the past, so that's why you see it there twice. But when you go to the quiz before migration, this is what it looks like. So you're used to seeing this, right? You're used to seeing this view of a quiz. But then after I migrated it to the new quiz, then it's going to open up in that new quizzing engine. And this is the teacher view, so this is going to be in the edit mode, but you still see that it's different than the oops, sorry, it's taking just a minute to load. Most likely just because I just migrated it, so we'll give it just a little time. I'll go into the one that I'd already done so that you can see that one. And because the watch pot never boils, I'm not going to keep staying on this, but you do see that it's loaded in the new quizzes. It's just taking some time. Generally, that is not the case. That is not something that I have experienced before. All right, so we're also going to go, and I want to show you how when you, actually, let me go to a Spanish class. When you are wanting to align outcomes to a quiz question, then you can do so. With classic quizzes, you cannot do that. With classic quizzes, you can align outcomes to question banks. So I'm going to quizzes, and I'm going to go to my question banks, and this is in classic quizzes. And you can see that with this particular question bank, I have aligned all of these questions in this question bank to this outcome, meaning that whenever, if I create a quiz and say pull questions from this question bank, then those questions will be aligned to outcomes. But I can't just, when I'm building a quiz in classic quizzes, say I want this question to be aligned to this outcome and this question to be aligned to that outcome. It has to be done through question banks. However, in new quizzes, as long as you have the outcomes in your course, so when you go to your course, you get outcomes. You can either create outcomes, right? Let me cancel that. Or you can find outcomes. And so you should be able to find, if you haven't already done so, you should be able to find all the North Carolina standards for whatever you're teaching, and you're able to find the grade level standards, if it's a specific grade, or if it's, like for my case, a proficiency level. But then you can import all of those standards into that course. I'm not going to import these, but all I'm going to do is hit grade 4. I'm going to want to import all of the grade 4 healthful living standards, and so I'd hit import, and it would import them into my course, and then they would all be available for my students, or for me to assess my students on those particular standards. So it just keeps drilling down into the individual clarifying objectives. So when I'm in new quizzes, so let's go home. I'm going to show you one I've already got done. When I'm in new quizzes, you see that I have this question is already aligned to that outcome. So all of these questions are aligned to outcomes. I had to, in addition to pulling in the outcomes to the course, I also pulled them into my new quizzes. So I could say now I want to align this whole quiz to a specific set of outcomes, which I don't, because I want individual questions aligned. But I could do that if I wanted to. I could align it at the quiz level. Here, when I did that, so I want to see, oops, this is, I can't authorize, I can't edit the item because I put it into a question bank. That's why. So let's create a new question. I'll show you how you align a new question to all right. So then I could go in and go to, align to outcome, choose, and I would go in and choose my outcomes. All right, so I would want to do intermediate mid, doing connections to language literacy, use language to present information. I'm going to put that one. And so I'm going to align that to both of those outcomes. And that's how I align questions, specific questions to course outcomes. And then based on the score on that question, that's going to feed that report. And so you can see that for the students who've already taken the quiz, and I just added these two, that's why nobody is assessed on that. But for the students who've already taken the quiz, you can see where their mastery was on each of the outcomes that I had, or each of the questions and outcomes that I had aligned previously in that quiz. So I'm going to go back to our agenda. We talked about migrating. We talked about outcome alignment, question types and settings, report options. We talked about moderating. We do need to talk about item banks, but that we only have 6 minutes left. So I'm going to pause again for questions. Are there any questions?
We've had one or two come in, but nothing that I think you need to address with the group. I think we're okay to try to squeeze in one more thing.
Okay, cool. All right, so item banks. So as you saw me as I was building earlier, I was creating item banks. And when I create item banks, I also I could either create one here, so I could enter a bank name. And there's no questions in there yet, right? Because we haven't put any in there yet. Sorry, going back to here. I could also, I need to click here. Sorry, I need to find my breadcrumb. I could see all of the item banks that do have questions. So I can see which ones have questions. I'm going to go into this particular one, and you're going to see that I have already shared this with a number of people. So I can share this item bank with her, add, done. So that's that easy to share item banks when you're creating them with your co-workers, with your fellow teachers, right? So I can edit the name of that, and also just open it up, and I can see which questions I wanted to add. All questions pulled, 1 point per question. All right, so I could add those directly to this quiz. I could edit the questions. So you see, I was going to use my little Spanish body parts question again today. I could duplicate it, right? And I could, if I'm gonna, I could keep a copy in the blank. I could also, or in the bank that it's in. I could also choose a new bank for it to go to when I duplicate it. So you got all of those different options for your item banks. So I know that was a whole lot to cover. I just encourage you to use the guides. As I mentioned, all of those guides have how to do everything. So when you're looking at the specific item types, so how to create a hotspot question, it walks you directly through, you've got to add this type of item. Here you go, add a hotspot, put a title, a stem, drag that image, shows you how to draw the hotspot shape. Again, I had problems with the circle or the oval, but you might do a little better than I did. Shows you all of those different things that you're able to do when you're creating a hotspot question, including if you want to add it to a bank. So for each of those guides, they're just very, very, very specific. How to create a formula question. That's one thing that, I don't do a lot of formulas, so it tells you exactly what you have to do when you're putting in those variables, the minimum and maximums and decimals, when you're putting in that formula definition. So I'll show you exactly what you have to do when you're creating those types of questions. So just really use those guides as you go in and start playing with new quizzes. One way to know for sure if you have it available is in your course settings. You should see feature options, new quizzes. If you don't see that, then you want to talk to whoever your Canvas admin is in your school or district about getting new quizzes added. It may be that you see it, but it has a button like this to let you toggle it on and off. If it has that button and it's on it's black and has an X, then you just toggle it on in order to turn it on. So you may either not see it, and in that case, you talk to your district administrator or your school administrator for Canvas. Or if you have an option to turn it off or on, you just turn that on. And that's all I had. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. Had to, capitalize on all the Yoda excitement, baby Yoda here lately.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Christy, and thank you for joining us, for our attendees, and to Jill and Julie as well for their time today during this busy season. And like I said, give me about 5 business days and I'll have that certificate emailed out to you along with the link to this recording so you can practice, practice, practice. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.